Verunga National Park is the oldest one in Africa. It was founded 100 years ago this month. Located in the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's facing extraordinary challenges, one of the biggest being the threat of war. A rebel group battling the Congolese government now controls parts of Verunga National Park, and Reuters News reports that fighting in the area has sped up deforestation. That could spell trouble for the mountain gorillas that live here, an emblematic part of the region. So to support conservation efforts and support local farmers, as well as commemorate its 100-year anniversary, Verunga is producing 25,000 chocolate gorillas. They'll be sold in Europe, with the profits going to help people in communities around the Congolese park. Instability in this part of the world has sometimes made it difficult even to get the cocoa, according to a chocolatier. But the treat brings numerous benefits to people in a very troubled part of the world. This is The World from A to Z with Carl Azuz, and it means the world to have you watching. Thank you. A milestone traditionally observed by political pundits and the American media is the first 100 days of a U.S. leader's new term in office. That milestone for President Donald Trump was yesterday. His second non-consecutive term began on January 20th, and it kicked off with a slew of immediate executive orders concerning issues like immigration, the economy, and government regulations. These are laws that set new government policies and undid previous ones of former President Joe Biden. Like all executive orders, they don't have approval from Congress, and they can be challenged in court or overturned by the current or new administrations. Also in his first 100 days, President Trump has hosted almost a dozen foreign leaders at the White House. His Department of Government Efficiency says it's eliminated $160 billion in wasteful government spending so far, but it's been accused of firing too many federal workers and cutting funding for departments whose supporters say should be left alone. Following a campaign promise to crack down on illegal immigration, the Trump administration says unlawful border crossings dropped 95% between last March and this March, but lawsuits have been filed against some policies, which include deportation flights for people who've been living in the U.S. illegally. And critics say the administration's back and forth tariff decisions, which impose additional taxes on certain imported goods, will cause prices to rise and hurt the economy, though the president says they're necessary to increase fairness in international trade and encourage more manufacturing in America.
Word of knowledge. The first 100 days milestone was first associated with what U.S. president? George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan. Following a fireside chat when he discussed what he'd done in his first 100 days, the time period was first associated with President Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Experts say the milestone didn't really matter before that fireside chat in 1933, but it came at a consequential time in American history. The country was in the throes of the Great Depression. President Roosevelt, a Democrat, had members of his party in control of both the House and Senate. That gave him political support to pass laws quickly, and he wanted to draw attention to his efforts to respond to the nation's economic problems. Since then, the first 100 days of a presidency have been a sort of benchmark. Presidents have come into office with vastly different national and political circumstances than the ones of the early 1930s, but the media use the milestone to assess a leader's progress. Some presidents have played up what they accomplished in that time. Some have downplayed it and indicate that the changes they want to make take longer. There's nothing constitutional about the period and no legal deadlines attached to it. As History.com describes the first 100 days, they're, quote, a kind of political version of a first impression.
History isn't only in textbooks, it's all around you. At Educational Travel Adventures, we take students beyond the classroom and out into the world. Your adventure starts here.
On this date in world history. On April 30th, 1789, George Washington became the first president to take the oath of office. He did it on the balcony of Federal Hall in New York City, which was the nation's capital at that time. He also gave an inaugural address to Congress, even though that wasn't required by the Constitution. What's been described as the greatest real estate deal in history was signed on this date in 1803. For $15 million, the United States bought the Louisiana Territory from France. This became known as the Louisiana Purchase, and it doubled the size of the U.S., extending the country west of the Mississippi River for about 4 cents per acre. And on this date in 1975, North Vietnamese forces took control of the South Vietnamese capital of Saigon. What was known as the Fall of Saigon was the last major event in the Vietnam War, and the Southeast Asian country was soon unified under communist rule.
Where in the world? This nation's official language is French, and it got its independence from France in 1960. But it's located about 2,500 miles away in West Africa. Its borders include Liberia, Ghana, and the Atlantic Ocean, and its people are called Ivorians. This is Ivory Coast, or Côte d'Ivoire, and it's home to 30 million people.
In the little town of Odiene in northern Ivory Coast, a clamorous song of hope rises from young musicians. Just a couple years old, this is the nation's first Philharmonic orchestra, with 140 musicians, well over the required 80 members that make up a Philharmonic, and the required 4 musical sections.
I want to be a professional musician because the orchestra changed my life. There's nothing here in Odiene. The orchestra is important for us.
Ivory Coast produces much of the world's cocoa and coffee, and hundreds of thousands of children work on farms in sometimes dangerous conditions. The legal working age is 16. The government recently cracked down on child labor, but in more remote areas, it's hard to regulate.
I don't have lessons in the evening, so I come to help my mom. After that, on Saturdays and weekends, I go to the field.
Personally funded by Adama Kamara, the orchestra offers a new opportunity for many.
Ever since I was a little boy, I've dreamed of being a musician, and now my dreams are coming true.
The entire orchestra meets once a week, but every day, a handful of students between the ages of 6 and 16 are picked up by minibus and brought to practice. Any skill level is welcome.
We're doing the opposite of what our traditional orchestra does, gathering the best musicians. Here, the Odiene Orchestra brings them together as an orchestra, and that's where they learn the skills.
But just because the students start at a low level doesn't mean their performances are low stakes. The orchestra played for the president on Ivory Coast's Independence Day. With an important performance like that, nerves can't get in the way. But the students aren't newbies anymore.
Playing in front of so many people is a bit weird. But now I've played in front of everyone and gained confidence. I enjoy playing in front of all of those people.
All 3 of today's requests came from our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@theworlda2z. Mrs. Lewis's class is here from Jasper, Texas. We've got some Bulldogs watching from Jasper Junior High School in the Lone Star State. Aspire Stockton Secondary Academy is with us from the Golden State of California. Hello to Miss Heredia's class and the Eagles watching from Stockton. And in the Mount Rushmore State, you'll find Rossholt High School. It's the home of the Raiders in Rossholt, South Dakota, where Mr. Poorwall's class is awesome like Fridays. A sheriff's office in Florida called this, quote, just another totally normal day in the Sunshine State. We call it, quote, something you'll probably never see anywhere else. When a not exactly small alligator recently wandered onto an interstate median, a licensed gator trapper wearing camo and no shoes helped law enforcement wrangle the rascally reptile and load it into the back of a pickup truck. You might notice how traffic just zips on by. Things are on different scales there, and maybe drivers don't slow down unless the gator's a speed bump. Some places are simply swamped with them, and it takes an expert in cold blood to really clamp down and wrestle the jawsome task of getting one snout of the way. At least we now know where the Wrangler can get new shoes. I'm Carl Azuz for The World from A to Z, and we'll see you later.